not all suicidal metalheads are dicks.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
We're here. Hi, Jamie. It's me, Sam Russo, your co-podcast host. Final Transmission. One horror movie every week from the dawn of time to the end of time. How you doing, old buddy?
I'm doing great, Sam. It's February, and we're talking all about love.
Oh.
Ugh.
Ouch.
And I am feeling good. I've got a beer on the go. I've got a hat on.
So all the boxes are ticked.
Yeah.
Me too, actually. Have a beer, have a hat. Does that mean I should be feeling good? Because I'm not. What's wrong here? What am I missing?
I think I don't know, the
Positive
part
attitude?
of us. Yeah.
Right,
You need a
I'll work on it.
PMA.
Get that PMA. Great.
PMA
So
all
today
day.
we're talking about we're taking a little trip, taking a journey.
Yeah, to the Vegemite aisle. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Someone has probably called it that once. For those of you who aren't familiar with Vegemite, it's Australian, and so is the movie that we're talking about today. So
Yeah, it's our first Australian movie. I went back through our previous greatest hits and couldn't find another one.
I don't think Australia's even been mentioned in a movie we've watched so far.
No.
We've
We're
really
sort
been
of like-
living the glory days.
It's sort of like Terry Pratchett, and we're just sort of bringing in the Lost Continent quite late in the Discworld game.
What a great, accessible reference that is, Jamie. Hi, Australia, if you're listening. Welcome to the podcast. Where have you been? Well, we know
Yeah.
geographically, but what have you been doing?
They've been trapped. There was a big spider between the door and them, and so they've not been able to get out for a long time.
Australians don't give a fuck about spiders. It's a daily occurrence to, like, Incredible Shrinking Man your fucking way out of a supermarket. At least that's how I feel, having never been to Australia.
Yeah, I've never been to Australia either. I was going to go, and then we didn't.
I'm glad we got that out of the way early,
Yeah.
so we can just talk about how hideously ignorant we are from this point on.
How do you feel about Australia and Australians more generally, Sam?
Hard to generalize an entire nation. Don't know how to reply to that.
Okay.
How do I
think-
feel? Fine.
Yeah. Neighbours bad, the Benny's good. That's how I feel.
There's your cultural touch points. Thoroughly touched.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this movie. It's called The Loved Ones.
Yeah.
It was released in 2009, rated R, and directed by Sean Byrne.
Correct. Also written by Sean Byrne,
boy.
starring some Australian people that I've never seen in anything else, apart from Daddy,
Mm.
who is in Romper Stomper.
He's got a very, very Australian name. Old Johnny
Brumpton.
Yeah.
Or JB.
That's quintessentially Australian right there.
Yeah.
How do you feel about watching a movie with nobody that you knew?
Fine. I watch a lot of movies with nobody that I know.
How do you feel about watching a contemporary movie spoken in English from 2009 featuring nobody that you knew? That's got to be rarer.
Like I say, I'm vaguely familiar with John Brumpton, and also he looks like an Australian man. Do you know what I mean? He looks like he's very quintessential. He sort of looks like both of the sort of 90s, 80s and 90s Aussie men that broke through into Hollywood. He looks kind of like Crocodile Dundee. He looks kind of like Brian Brown from FX.
Paul Hogan.
Yeah. He looks like a melty waxwork of Paul Hogan.
The Brumpmeist. I don't see the Hogan really, but I hear what you're saying. He's Australian and a man, so yes.
Imagine if Paul Hogan was in the early mid 2000s web animated series Salad Fingers. He would look exactly like fucking John Brumpton.
Old Brumpy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, let's not talk too much about the Brumpmeist here because that would be spoiler territory.
Do you know what we should talk about?
No, what?
Sam, I've got a question for you.
Oh, I'm not synopsising it.
Are you sick of feeling like you lost this fight?
Wow. No. Are you sick of feeling like you lost this fight? Are you pretty enough?
I am pretty enough, I
Good.
think. So obviously that song features fairly heavily in this film, and we'll talk
Sure
about
does.
that. But I feel like that was a big song in Australia, but it never really made it over here, right?
Had you ever heard it before, this film?
I'd heard it in the context of a viral video from an Australian band called The Axis of Awesome, who did a video that was like all songs use the same 4 chords, and you can play all songs using the same 4 chords, and that was one of them in that video.
Right.
And that was the only context with which I'd heard a brief snippet of this song.
I'd never heard it. It's
No.
immediate. It felt like I'd heard it before, but I had to
Yeah.
Shazam it during the movie because I'm 100 years old.
You know, it feels like a song that you've heard. It feels like a song that's just existed.
Kind of feels like a song that you wrote. Like it's
Yeah.
it's so immediate and very familiar. What do you think of the song?
It's fine.
What do you think of the movie? Try and trick you into finishing the podcast.
Well, do you want me to drop a synopsis?
Yeah, because I think you can probably do it in 5 seconds.
Okay, so The Loved Ones, 2009, directed by Sean Byrne. Brent is a traumatized, depressed mosher teenager who is asked to the school dance, by local loser Lola. Some good alliteration there. He says no, he's got a girlfriend. She doesn't accept that, kidnaps him, tortures him. That's the movie.
There you go. No spoilers, but that's everything that happens in the movie. That was good. You're about 25 seconds over, but we'll take it. Good synopsis. Well played.
Thanks, mate.
And all of this takes place in Australia.
Of course. Where else
Suburban
could it take
Australia,
place?
I would say, right? Small town
Yeah.
Australia. I promised myself I wasn't going to do a single accent, and then I've done it about 10 minutes in. Whoops. No more accents.
Yeah, I enjoy doing an Australian accent, but I'm abstaining
Why don't you do it for the entire podcast from now on?
because I'm not very good at it.
I don't believe that for a second.
Well, it's true, and you'll never know.
Fuck. I thought I had
Yeah.
you there. I thought you were just going to start doing it. So how about this fucking Xavier Samuel playing Brent?
Yeah.
Not exactly a minger.
No, it's hard for me to reconcile. He just sort of looks like an Australian man, right?
Do you think so? You always say this. You always say that.
Well,
Are you going to
what I
say
mean
this
is,
about
like-
everyone in this movie who doesn't look like an Australian
No,
man
no,
who is a
no.
man?
What I mean is, like, he's meant to be like an archetypal like metalhead, but he just looks like a normal Australian. They've all got long hair.
Right.
They've all got
They as in all Australians.
no, but like a lot of them.
Okay.
And
If we're just going to paint the whole of Australia in broad, long-haired strokes, I think you need to get it all out of your system now. Say everything bad about Australia.
oh yeah, so I'm sorry, Australia. Everyone is a fucking long-haired Adonis. Apologies.
You should apologize.
It's not true. Some of them are Will Wagner.
I think this guy's in Fury. Do you remember him in Fury? The Brad Pitt tank movie?
I didn't watch the Brad Pitt tank movie.
Oh, it's quite good.
Tanked.
He's in that.
I'm sure he is.
He's also in Frankenstein, 2015.
I don't think I've
Bernard
watched
Rose. Job.
2015 Frankenstein.
Yeah, weird, eh? Anyway, just wanted to say he's hot. So job
He
done.
is hot. Shall we? He's in Elvis.
Is he?
Apparently so.
He's not the titular Elvis.
No, he's not. That's Austin Butler,
Hmm.
who I don't care for. You liked him in that movie, didn't you? He was in a movie that your mate made. I say your mate, the guy from Lucero's brother.
Austin Butler.
Yeah, he was in the car racers, the drive.
Oh no,
Masters.
that guy sucks. I can't stand that guy. Balls
Yeah.
the fucking actual tits off me.
But yeah, that's Austin Butler.
Oh
But-
yeah, he does a good facsimile of Elvis maybe, but fucking hell is he boring.
Yeah.
And
What's
I don't
the-
really like
what's-
that movie, sadly. Bike
What's
Riders
the
thing
movie
was
called?
really-
The Bike Riders. That's it. Not
Yeah.
the Drive Monsters.
He's in some absolute dog shit World War One fighter pilot thing that it's bad. Yeah,
Anyways,
not a big
Austin
fan.
Butler.
Yeah.
Don't care for him. He's not in this movie, so let's not talk about him anymore.
More like lost in butt. Sorry, carry on. The Loved Ones.
Yeah. So why don't we take a break so we can come back and get into some spoilers, Sam?
Yep. Yep.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Oh, we're back.
We are back. Okay, Sam. One thing that we didn't do in the intro is sort of check in on whether you'd seen this before. Had you seen it before?
No, I'd never seen it before. I found it actually slightly difficult to find without paying lots of money. So I don't know how big it is in terms of, distribution and release stuff, but I don't really remember 2009, broadly speaking. So I have no memory of this coming out or existing, and it took me a while to find. Is it something that you'd seen before, or is this fresh for you?
No, yeah, I'd seen it before. I had it on DVD. It was fairly well marketed at the time in sort of low budget-ish horror circles.
Right.
And I think was fairly well regarded on its release. Obviously, we'll dig into how well we regarded it, but it was fairly well regarded, I believe.
So yeah, this film exists. What next? We've established that much.
What was your initial gut reaction? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
I thought it was very entertaining. It's a fast-moving movie for the most part. I think there's some pacing issues around
I completely agree.
Yeah, final third type area. There's some stuff that feels oddly drawn out that doesn't really need to be. But I think, generally speaking, it's a pretty solid movie. It's well put together. The performances are pretty much bang on, start to finish, really. I didn't have insanely high hopes, so definitely wasn't disappointed. I think it knows what it wants to be in terms of the overall aesthetic and what kind of feelings it wants to create. But there's just maybe a little something missing for me in terms of pulling it all together. I want to tease that out a little bit in discussion because I'm not sure what it is. But pretty solid effort.
I agree. I think that there's something in it at the core that just kind of rubs me up the wrong way, and it's mainly down to the pacing and the editing.
Yeah, some funny editing choices.
Like, I think scenes and even shots just seem to linger on for way longer than they need to, and there are like huge gaps in scenes where it's like you could just cut that out.
Yeah.
And it just sort of knocks it all a bit off kilter. There's too much space, too many gaps. An interesting thing about it, which I sort of noticed on my second watch through this time, was if you pause it at any point, the still on your screen is almost definitely like a really quite beautifully well shot, well lit image.
Yeah.
But in motion, you never get that impression. It never feels particularly attractive.
Yeah, it's not edited very fluidly in some places. Things kind of lurch a bit. So again, like I'm saying this from a point of view of someone who was pretty much entertained the whole way through. There's almost entire threads that just feel plopped in. Like, I really enjoyed the entertainment value of his mate and his goth date for the prom. But I got no idea why it was in there. It was kind of just an excuse for some dark, sexy shit, which, I'm fine with. But I was kind of waiting for it to materialize into something plot valuable, and that didn't really happen. I mean, it kind of did, but not. You could have done it way easier, I guess.
I think, like, for the most part, that's just there as like some light comic relief. So you have something that doesn't feel like you're being literally tortured by a woman and her dad, by a girl and her dad. And then, like, obviously it ties in together at the end because, like, she's dealing with this trauma as a result of the family, and Brent is dealing with this trauma as a result of Lola and her dad as well. So, like, it dovetails in, but it does feel ancillary.
Yeah, and again, not in a way that makes me think, what the fuck is this? But in a way that I just kind of wish had a bit more teeth to it. Like, there's, in the Halloween remake, the 2018 Halloween remake, there's the whole prom scene thing there. And Drew Scheid is kind of this character, the guy that plays Oscar. He's this kind of comic relief trying to get laid guy. He even kind of looks fairly similar. And his plot thread is interesting and arresting because spoilers everyone for Halloween 2018, he dies. He's killed by Michael Myers. Well, he kind of kills himself, I guess. He gets impaled. His neck gets impaled on a fence, I think. But the whole plot comes together because it shows how the one kid loses their phone, so they can't be contacted. The other kid dies and gets discovered. And then that ultimately leads to the death of a main character. So that works. It fits really well. It's a really interesting piece of texture between Michael Myers stalking the streets and kids at the prom. Whereas this kind of just feels like it leaps between kids doing kid stuff and people being tortured for no real reason. And I was fine with it, to be honest. I just thought it was worth pointing out.
I think, like, if I was Sean Byrne, I would be saying that, like, we're juxtaposing the real prom and, like, the real kid shit with this horrible fake prom stuff that's happening over at Lola's house.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it doesn't really hang together. But that's
I guess it doesn't, because both prom experiences are just as painful. Like, yes, he's being horribly tortured, but at the other prom, it's fucking shambles. It's not your quintessential prom experience.
No,
I don't know. I really enjoyed the whole dick grabbing dance floor scene. I just fucking loved that scene. But I was left thinking, like, wow, where does it tie in? Who cares? Enjoy the dick grabbing. It's
pretty gross when they're just banging in the school car park.
Gross is one word. I was fine with it.
Like,
I thought it was funny because they get busted and then you realise that they're literally 10 feet away from the door. I thought it was quite a good clever little joke.
I quite liked the teacher isn't like, you know, he doesn't punish them for that. He's just like, can you please go fuck somewhere else?
Yeah, twice. Yeah. I don't think you should be giving handjobs on the dance floor, young lady, and then outside. I think you should be fucking in the school car park, young lady. Yeah, I like that. I think there's almost an offbeat element to the humor that also kind of hits for me. It seems like everyone's giving very stoic performances that are ultimately, you know, pretty earnestly horror-based. But somehow it's still funny. There's really dark humor and comedy in this that I think, you know, is core to the Australian comic experience of horror and dark shit. Like, just the fact that he's sitting there in that chair with knives in his feet, scarred up, scratched, burned, fucked with completely, and he's covered in glitter, I think is so funny. It's really good. But all of that, there's just a slightly bumpy texture to the way it's all put together. And again, not a bad thing. This feels like a pretty background kind of movie in a lot of ways. I think this would be the kind of movie that you would normally say you would have on, you know, at a party potentially.
Maybe.
Maybe it's not good enough.
I think maybe it's a bit slow.
Yeah.
There's a bit too much like not happening for it to be a background of a party movie. One thing I really like is how bright it is. Like this came out 2009, right? And we were in the middle of the grey-green horror nightmare.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like Australian movies just look like this, or if it's specifically like taking a reference from Picnic at Hanging Rock, but there's a lot of shots that really evoke that very similar middle of the day creepy horror vibe of Picnic at Hanging Rock. And I really rate that, and I really like it, and I think it makes the film feel better for not being the mid-2000s horrible shit-coloured horror movie.
Definitely. And there's loads of very sort of well-composed shots that are kind of would maybe in a film that uses its budget less effectively be really starkly lit and kind of blown out. There's a lot of kind of portrait style shots in this that are crisp. Like, they look really good. Single and two people shots are composed really well. They're lit really well, both indoors and outdoors. There's some really interesting shot choices in scenes like, you know, when he's climbing. There's some really good shots there, I think. There's some moments of genuine tension. My overall feeling about the movie is that it's a really solid flick. Just something slightly jank. And it's hard to put your finger on.
Talking about the rock climbing scene, I think that is probably the best section of the movie because it's edited quite well. It's like that bit's edited in a really sort of snippy, quick way. And then when he escapes at the end and he slices the dad up and all that stuff happens, then there's also a bit more frantic editing there. In the rock climbing scene, I think it's like basically the thesis of the movie is that, right? Like, this kid is suicidal. He wants to die, or he thinks he wants to die. But when the reality of actually dying is there, he fights like fuck to not die.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's cool for the character, but I think it's also like a really cool or a really good way of representing that sort of how you feel when you're a suicidal teenager. I know that like it's not performative. Like you don't. It's not. Yeah, you don't just like pretending that you want to die, but like when the reality of actually dying is there in front of you, you do sort of think, oh fuck, is this actually what I want? Is this really where I want to be? And that really sort of felt real to me. I could relate to that.
I think there's probably two ways of looking at it. I think it would be really easy to dismiss it as possibly a little bit surface level and, you know, maybe a slightly superficial treatment of suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, etc. Because we just get like a shot of self-harm and then a climbing montage where exactly that message is conveyed. But I think that criticism might be a little bit heavy-handed because this is a short, tight movie with a lot of crazy shit happening in it. Yeah, exactly. So I think to convey that about this character without loads of potentially boring dialogue, I think that's the way to go. You know, it gets the job done. There's no ambiguity here. It's exactly what you just said. It's highly relatable. It's maybe not like, I don't know, it's not portrayed like poetry in any way, but for a horror movie, it's like, check it out. This kid wants to die. We're going to put him in a situation where he could easily give up and die, but he doesn't. I think that's kind of clever. Does the job, you know, it's a tool.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, an issue that I have with Brent as a character is that he is nice.
So I hate him. What are you saying?
Well, I feel like him being like alternative and into metal and stuff is a mistake because I'm immediately sympathetic to him.
Mm-hmm.
And even without like all the dead dad stuff, and like I get his character and it makes sense, but like he isn't mean to Lola. She asks him out and he says no because he's got a girlfriend. Like
True.
he's not.
Oh, okay. So you want him to be more of like an 80s slasher dick where he's done something moderately mean and therefore gets punished to fuck, and you're just like, ooh, a bit much.
Yeah, I want him to be John Travolta in Carrie. Like that makes much more sense, but he isn't, and so.
Maybe that's interesting though. It certainly breaks the mold. He doesn't deserve anything that happens to him. He's fucking had enough happen to him. And I guess his arc is going from like, I want to die to I want to live. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I hear you though. It would be nice if maybe he was. Would it be nice if he was more of a dick? I don't know.
I think
I like feeling really bad for the guy. Like every time the shit just gets worse and worse and worse to the point he's so fucked at the end. His girlfriend freaks out and recoils when she sees him. That's how fucked he is. I kind of like that.
I mean, I really respect that because that's not a reaction that you ever get to see in like a movie like this.
And great performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder like what they're trying to say with that, with him like being relatively nice and not being horrible or even like not even wanting to say it to his girlfriend because he doesn't want to cause a scene or anything. It's just he's just a nice guy.
He's actually like really grateful to his girlfriend as well, isn't he? Like the note that he writes her, and yeah, he is a nice guy. Maybe like maybe it's one of those like, oh, not all suicidal metalheads are dicks. You know, maybe in Australia you still need to telegraph that.
I mean, I wonder if like what the movie is trying to say is that if it was a dude asking a girl out, we would sort of forgive an extra layer of like perseverance or like pursuance.
But because
she's
mental.
Yeah, because it's a girl asking a guy out, and like obviously she takes it to an extreme. I mean, I don't know what the point is, but I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's something in the fact that like it's completely unwarranted. She asked you out, he said no. Now you're nailing his feet to the floor and fucking drilling a hole in his forehead. Like,
but part of what I like about that is you when it first starts happening, when you're like, fucking hell, she's drugged him. You think, oh Jesus, that's a bit much. Like, she obviously doesn't handle rejection particularly well. And then you're like, oh, okay. And now she's going to have her own little prom with him. That's a bit much, but maybe he'll survive. And then the escalation of the torture is so intense and so rapid. When it gets to the point where there's a fucking cellar full of mutant maniac exes, basically, and cops are getting shot and people are being piled up to the rafters. It's a fucking hilarious escalation from being turned down for the prom. And are they cannibals? Is that what's being implied here?
I think they're not cannibals. They're people under the stairs, right? That's who they are.
Shut up. So when they're eating the chicken, it's not subtly implied they're eating the boys, is it?
No,
The
the cannibals
finger-licking
under the
good
stairs
bit?
are the boys.
Yeah, no, I know they're eating each other down there. They're fucked.
Yeah.
It's every man for himself in the basement. But while they're eating dinner, are they also eating boys, or are they actually eating chicken?
No, I
couldn't
think
tell.
that's chicken.
Okay, good.
I
It's
think that is
finger-licking.
also, of all the fucked up imagery in this movie, of which there is quite a lot,
Yeah.
the fried chicken and big glass of milk combo is the most fucked up thing you'll see in this film.
What? You don't
It's-
like a leg and a milk?
Like,
You do, don't you? Yeah, fucking
I mean,
do.
I love milk, but obviously in movies, people drinking milk is used to show how fucked up they are because
Or
nobody just
how
drinks
young they
milk.
are.
Well, sure. Fucking babies are crazy fucked up.
Yeah, babies are mad about milk.
Yeah.
That's my new sitcom. Mad About Milk with Paul Reiser.
Paul Reiser and a baby, and they're a neurotic couple in New York.
And the baby is voiced by Ted Danson. It can just talk.
Sounds great. I'd watch it.
I'm in. Fuck, dude. Where were we in the 80s drinking milk?
Yeah. We
Where
were drinking
could we
milk.
have been? If we were in our 20s in the 80s and we had unlimited access to cocaine, we'd be fucking billionaires by now.
I mean,
be
if we were
entertainment
given
moguls.
if we were given cocaine instead of milk, just think where we could have got.
I'd be Ted Danson.
If our parents were moguls in Hollywood in the 80s, then the breast milk would have been full of cocaine. So,
True. My Daddy the Mogul. The Jamie Carruthers autobiography.
yeah. Alternative universe autobiography. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the movie. How do you rate the performance of Robin McLeavy as the princess?
As Lola,
Yeah.
I think she's great. I think she's only overshadowed by John Bumgardner. What's his name?
John Bumgarner. John Brumpton.
John Brumpton.
Interesting. Well, I mean that bodes well for an on-screen duo. If you think
Yeah.
he's better than her, I would go with her. I think she steals the fucking movie.
I think that first long shot of him where he's looking at her and he's full of like glassy-eyed pride and emotion.
And then you realize he's got a boner.
Yeah, it's so believable. It's the school play dad look.
And then it
it's
transitions so seamlessly into something so despicably creepy.
Do you think it's a pulled punch that they don't make out? Or do you think that the movie suggesting that they're about to and then stopping it is enough?
It's so enough. I don't really cringe about incest in movies, really, but the relationship on screen between these two characters was so desperately uncomfortable. I was cringing out of my flesh. They do a great job here of portraying an incredibly unhealthy relationship between a father and a daughter, and they
Yeah.
don't need to kiss. They barely need to touch. It's so... I don't know, it goes right to the back of my throat. And normally, I'm fine with it. I love me some incest in a movie. But this was, woof, so well acted, so well portrayed. It felt like they were genuinely related, and I was having trouble with it. Yeah, I think he's superb. I'm not taking anything away from the Brumpmeist. I just think without an incredible performance from Robin McLeavy, this movie doesn't hang together even half as well as it does. If she's not compelling on screen, if you're not curious about her motivation, her past, her history, what the fuck she's up to, how far she'll go, then some of that relationship falls away, some of the stakes disappear, and you're maybe not even as much behind Brent's character. She has to be seriously unhinged. I mean, the best part is I don't find myself putting her in the place of an antagonist that I despise. Do you know what I mean?
No.
I don't see her as someone I hate. I see her as someone
sort of pity.
kind of like. Yeah, I kind of want her to do her worst, even though I really like Brent. So that says a lot for the writing, I think. That's a pretty huge feat in the writing. If your main character, your protagonist, is essentially a really nice guy, you've got no reason to want anything bad to happen to him, but your antagonist is so compelling that you really want to see her go as far as she can possibly go with it. That's a pretty great feat of writing.
Yeah, I think like they set the stall out really early as well with the scene where she's trying to get him to piss into the glass with the milk in it.
Yeah.
And he starts pissing and she's like, "It's crying." It's so horrible.
You can't put this in a podcast, but everything she does is like something I've either seen, heard about, or experienced. Like, she is fucking great, dude.
That's staying in.
It's crying. Wowzers fucking trousers. Yeah, there's so much here that just makes me feel like the same as like Superbad. This all comes from somewhere real, you know.
Yeah.
Not the hyperviolence, but everything else is like shit that actually happened, I think.
It's crying. I'll need to kiss it better. How do you feel about that? That's
kind of a fucking sexy movie, if I'm honest. It's another one of those whoops it's sexy movies.
I am not sure about that. But
I am. I had a hoot. I thought this was Horn Dog Central.
I feel like the hammering the knives through the feet.
Yeah.
I mean, A, very not sexy, but B is one of the most painful things I've watched in a film. It's such a relatable pain. I think it's like
didn't do it for me. Do you have a foot pain thing? Do you know, like?
No, but I've stood on things and they've hurt. So I can apply that more so than almost anything else. I can apply that level of knowledge to seeing that happen.
Yeah, I think my feet hurt so much all the time that knives through them is like almost. I have this thing where like pain on someone's back or their feet, I'm just like, oh, I bet that feels nice, just compared to the daily agony of my existence. Whereas if you show me a knife going sideways through a hand, oh fucking hell, that's. It's just because you know my fucking skeletal hands, I can see all the tendons. I can basically see my bone structure if I hold my hand up to the light, so I know what the fuck the knife's going through. It's horrible. My foot.
Do you never hold your feet up to the light?
Yeah, but they're kind of meaty. My trotters have seen some mileage. My hands just tend to wither over the years, whereas my feet just become more hardy. I'm a Suffolk punch.
Is that a phrase?
It's a horse. It's a type of horse.
Okay. I've
got literally no hands, but I've got the strongest hooves in the farm. So back to Robin McLeavy. Speaking of which,
Speaking of which, horses.
Speaking of a witch, I think she's phenomenal. I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I haven't seen Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, unfortunately. But yeah, this is a real showstopper for me. One of the best like tandem performances I've seen between a male and a female character in a movie where there's this kind of relationship. I think this is pretty bang on. And it feels, their relationship to me feels kind of slashery, which I like. It's not, because it's more torturous. It's more like hostage type movie, but there's something slashery about the prom situation for me that keeps me kind of hooked.
Yeah, I feel like this film, I mean, there's a lot of influences, obviously, and Carrie is one of them, but I think it owes quite a lot to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and that sort of fucked up family dynamic that you get in that. And there's a bunch of movies, well, there's at least one other movie that came out around this that had a similar dynamic, and that was, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called Mum and Dad.
No.
It's like a British torture, horror, slimy movie, which I know how much you love that sort of thing.
That is a movie I will never watch.
Yeah.
A British slimy torture movie. Get to fuck you, nutbar. I'm not watching that film.
Yeah.
Nope. It's probably got like, I don't know, fucking... I don't even want to guess who's in it. I don't even want to know. I never want to see that film. That and Septic Man. Stay in the bin.
But like, I wonder what was like going around at the time where like this abducting people and making them pretend that they're your family, or making them pretend that you want to be there. Like, I wonder why that was such a thing in the ether.
It felt faddy and kind of played out, which is why it's refreshing that this isn't boring in that regard. It's not predictable, I don't think. I don't see it going where it goes really at any point. And I love that they take away his capacity to speak or make noise without having to just gag him for the whole movie, because gags suck in movies. Like, gags are such a boring device, and 9 times out of 10 they just look like you could spit them out anyway. But injecting him so that he sounds like fucking Jacob Bannon for the whole movie, I think that's great.
Yeah, bleaching the vocal cords.
Yeah,
like,
is that a thing? Is that from real life?
It is a thing from real life. Yeah, I think there was an Australian serial killer that was doing that sort of thing.
How the fuck do you find out that even works? Oh, I don't want to know.
But like,
so bad.
As well as it being like a practical thing that you can do, it also just amps up the horrible instantly. It's like nobody likes needles, except fucking weirdos.
Kinky boys, yeah.
Okay, nobody likes needles against their will.
Nobody likes bleachy needles in the neck. Would be a pretty good absolute to go with.
Not only are you doing a practical thing that helps the movie carry on, you're doing something horrible right off the bat, and I think that's great. And like, they don't waste any time. Some of the stuff that they do, I think, is a little bit weak, a little bit toothless, like the heart, carving the heart in the chest thing.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, but I think that's something that would really fuck some people up. Like, I don't love the idea of having my skull drilled just to the right
I'd rather
depth. So, just to the right depth. That you could then pour a kettle of boiling water into the hole to melt my brain. That to me is fucking horrible. But some people are going to be crawling out of their skin at the idea of having shit scratched on their chest with a fork. Again, I look at it and I'm like, all right, it looks pretty cool.
It just sort of looks like nothing to me. It looks like a step back in terms of an escalation. Yeah,
it's more of a visual that certain viewers can hang their hat on than it is a really cool, inventive method of torture that we've seen so far pretty roundly.
And I guess like the issue with it maybe is that we've already seen it, like the character that we see at the beginning who's escaped. And I kind of want to come back to that because I feel like that might be a plot hole.
Yeah, I hear you.
But we've already seen it, so like it doesn't feel cool or interesting. And we see it in the scrapbook, and like just sort of, and we don't see it happen either. We see her have the fork, and then he's got it. So like it never feels earned or real. It's just like,
I think it's only cool that it's a fork. That's probably the only cool thing about it.
And like it does look like it's done with a fork. Like there are multiple scratch lines. But I do feel like it's a step back in terms of the way that things have been escalating. And
I would also prefer when she throws the salt on him, if it was just like a bucket of salt, rather than just like half missing him with a thing of table salt. It seems a little bit... You could really fucking go hard with that, or just like spray him with a big old bottle that says saline or something. Just really fucking do it, or don't.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that what they may be going for there is that like this isn't a sadistic thing that they're trying to do. It's just that they have salt around the house.
Yeah,
so like,
that makes sense. Yeah,
chuck it in, why not? But
I would still rather see like Daddy go get the rock salt and then a bucket of rock salt thrown out. It'd be fucking brutal.
Yeah,
the shit burns without having your chest carved up. The only real sort, and that's kind of where the pace starts to eddy a little bit in that whole sequence. What do you think of the two questions, double barrel coming at you? What do you think of the whole use of the razor blade as his self-harm tool, and then ultimately his emancipating factor? A second question: where does this fall for you in the general oeuvre of prom horror?
Well, second question first. I think this is sort of floaty, neary the toppy of like prom horror.
Yeah.
I like it more than I would say that I like Prom Night.
Jamie Lee Curtis, is that Prom Night?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Just a average 1981 Canadian slasher, one of many.
Love it.
Yeah, of course you do. I sort of put this on a par with, this is controversial, but I don't think you've seen it, is Cabin Fever 2, which I love. I love Cabin Fever 2. I haven't seen
Cabin Fever 2, no.
One day we'll cover it, because I think it's fucking great.
Okay.
It's a similar vibe, but it's Cabin Fever on Prom Night. Like, it's great. Obviously, Carrie is the echelon there.
Yeah, Carrie's kind of the one.
Yeah, but I can't really think of an awful lot more.
It's got some really compelling visual elements that are woven into this movie really well, I think. You know, when they're crowning, when her dad's crowning her prom queen, and it's just a shitty, like, fucking paper crown from a cracker. I think that's lovely. Really good touch. The pink dress, there's so much really iconic stuff. Like, I even love at the end, the credits, one side powder blue, one side baby pink. I think that's, you know, a really, really nice touch that shows this movie really wants to root itself in prom horror territory.
I feel like the moment when he gives her the dress and he's looking at her all proud, and that's the moment that I was talking about before. Like, she immediately starts undressing and putting the dress on. And I was like, Dad, look away. And he doesn't. And that's like the first moment where you're like, well, obviously these guys are fucked up. And they really sell that later with the almost kiss. But like, just look away. Oof. Oof.
Yeah, he doesn't. He, if anything, if possible, looks harder.
Yeah.
He definitely looks harder. So, you know, give me the skinny on Richard Wilson, the character of Jamie, the bud, the guy who takes the goth to the dance. What do you think of him? Because I thought he was fucking great.
He was good in One Foot in the Grave.
The Victor Meldrew.
Yeah, that actor, his name is Richard Wilson.
Is that Richard Wilson?
Yeah,
I feel like you've made that joke before. I don't know why. That feels like a lived-in quip. We've been here before, Jamie. We've run out of ideas. This is the last episode of Final Transmission. Jamie's run out of jokes. I just thought he gave a really solid comic foil performance with some heart. You know, all of his conversations with the dad of the girl he's just taken out, who's got completely fucked up and they banged in a car. You know, the book ending of the before conversation and the after conversation felt very real and really nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, Richard Wilson, I think he's fine. I like that different movie that's happening, but I mean, I don't maybe like the way that it gels with the main movie that's happening, but he's good. I think the girl is good. I really like the way that it also quite organically introduces some of these other characters. Like he has that whole conversation with Mia's dad, who is the cop, and then it also like fairly subtly nails his last name, and then we get that last name come back again when she's going through the scrapbook to show all the people that she's killed or that have been abducted and forced to go on these horrible dates with her.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's really neat. Like the writing, some of the writing is really like neat, and I don't mean neat in like I just think they're neat kind of way. I mean like it's quite sort of tidy.
Yeah, it was tricky for me because around the point the cop linkage stuff was happening, I'd kind of drifted a little bit. I'd gone into that sort of like stasis of, okay, torture, stakes, jeopardy, jarring transition to completely different action, back, not really feeling it. And some of that action passed me by a little bit. I've only watched it once, in fairness. So what is the actual fucking deal there then? What's the big, clever tie-in of all that action? What does it result in?
So the cop is the dad of one of the other kids that was taken.
Yeah, and then he just gets absolutely fucking mullered.
He does. And like the vibe is that the Mia, the goth girl, she's like that because of this trauma of her brother going missing.
Yeah. That felt a bit heavy-handed, but it was fine.
Yeah. But like I think it's just quite subtle the way that they ramp up to that. Like they introduce the cop, they say his name, he's wearing his cop outfit, he talks about like just sort of it just being a job or whatever is what he says. Like, put fucking food on the table or whatever.
Oh, you did it. You went there.
And then, like, you know, he's a cop in a movie that I didn't want to die.
Right.
And I think it's because...
He's not wearing a uniform.
No, it's because, like, it's obviously massively telegraphed that he's going to die. The second he pulls up to the house, you're like, oh, mate, you're dead.
That's weird that you say that, because I thought he might be a very peripheral character who kind of triggers the savior of of what's his name, Brent. I didn't know for certain he was going to die until he was in the house, and I was like, oh, you fucking what? Clear your corners, man. What do they teach you at the academy in Australia? But he deserved it, unfortunately, because he just sucks.
You can't go to the corners in Australia because they're full of spiders.
There you go. That's why Australian cops don't clear their corners. And it was a really nice bite for the whole "you've got no vocal cords" thing.
Yeah.
To have him not really be able to warn the cop. But, you know, the cop dying ultimately helps him make his big body pile and escape. So, necessary death, I guess. Yeah, but again, like, I'm not saying, wow, what a shock, he fucking died. But I had the slight feeling going in, like, oh, he's going to get him out of there. And no, he did not.
Yeah, like...
I mean, he did in a way, I guess. Maybe I was right.
It's just like... I knew he was going to die. It was just a case of when. Was it he rescues him and he gets him in the car and driving down the road, and then suddenly she fucking spears him with a ice pick or whatever. Like, it was always going to be something.
And that's what I have to credit the movie with I would go as far as to say big time, is if I'm watching a movie like this and my imagination's kind of sparked enough for those what ifs to be going through my mind, then the movie's doing something right, because that's where I love to live in slasher world in particular, but in any kind of like, where the fuck, how is this going to resolve type movie? When it starts unspooling a little bit, if I'm still thinking, well, how the fuck are we going to wrap this up? Like, he's got to escape, surely. She's got to do this. They've got to meet up. He's got to have his thread resolved. If I'm still interested enough to speculate and think, ooh, I wonder what if, then the movie's piqued my interest enough to kind of keep me guessing. And that's, that's worth some marks, some points.
Yeah, I would say so. It comes together quite nicely at the end. I think that it doesn't drift for me at the end. It drifts for me sort of all the way through. Everything is just a little bit meandery and a bit long and a bit... Okay, there's a layer of separation between me and what's happening in the movie that I kind of would like to be a little bit closer. I would kind of like to be a bit more involved, but I never quite feel that, which I think is a shame.
Yeah, that's another really interesting observation, I think, and it helps me understand a bit more about how I feel. And I think part of it is because a lot of these characters, nearly all of them, are pretty emotionally distant or emotionally unavailable. And that's not compelling for an audience in terms of feeling really involved with the social, family, action dynamics of everything you're seeing. It's only really Richard Wilson playing the rascal at the prom that gives you that access to the emotions you need to feel that these are people. The rest of the emotions are pretty high stakes, terror, tension, all that kind of stuff. And we get glimpses. Everyone is portrayed fairly sympathetically and quite cleverly, but there is a wall up around a lot of these characters that makes it kind of hard to fully get in there.
Yeah, I think like there's a purposeful like juxtaposition or like dichotomy between like Brent's relationship with his mum and Lola's relationship with her dad.
Yeah,
and like
definitely.
Obviously Brent and his mum are really distant because of this loss, and like Lola and her dad are really close.
Yeah,
leave it at that. But like obviously it's almost like the platonic ideal of what your parental relationship should be, like really supportive, really wants to give you the best of the thing, but like the best isn't necessarily what you actually need, because the best means drilling holes in people's heads and pouring boiling water into their brains.
And having sex with you.
Well, yeah, that too.
Layers on the onion.
But you do also get the impression in the Lola Daddy relationship that she's in charge. Like he's not driving any of it. I mean,
do you think so?
Yeah, like I feel like there's a bunch of moments where she screams at him, at Daddy, and he sort of like whimpers off into the corner.
Who the fuck is Bright Eyes? Is that her mum?
No, I think that's his version of Brent.
Oh.
I think the shtick is that they both do it, and they both go out and they both pick up people and they drill their heads and boil their brains.
I didn't really understand that. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
Like she's got the drill hole.
I knew all that, and that's when I first saw that. It's before there's any reference to drilling or watering or whatever we're calling the process of boiling someone's brain. And I thought, like, what the fuck is going on here? Has she been shot in the head and survived or something? Like, again, your head is kind of in a place of familial trauma in this movie. You're thinking everyone's origin story has to come from some kind of horrible family trauma. And I was like, did someone shoot her mum in the head and she survived and that's why she's mental? No.
I mean, it could be her mum. I could be wrong, but I was assuming that.
But why would you call her Bright Eyes and not Mum? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and she's also really horrible to her. Like she forces her to eat the chicken. Like,
yeah, she hates her.
Yeah, she's just a.
But that kind of started to evolve a little bit later on in the movie to me thinking maybe it was a jealous mother-daughter relationship because no one's ever going to live up to Daddy. Less said about that, the better. I'm literally like. Every part of me is sort of shriveling a little bit. How do you feel about the practical effects in this movie? Because there's some fucking doozies.
A lot of the effects are great. I think they do well to not linger on the people under the stairs.
Yep, agreed.
I mean,
that could have been an hour of the movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm fucking so glad that was just glimpses and then moving on.
Like I know that, and he kills them all. Brent kills them all instantly. That's kind of fucking metal, isn't it?
It's pretty bad, yeah.
Like I know you hated the people under the stairs.
Yes.
So do you think this handled it that better, more organically?
Different planets, different fucking universes. This is not the people under the stairs.
But the shtick is the same thing, right? These are people that they've abducted and then they've tortured and then they've let rot in their cellar. Like that's
Yeah, but People Under the Stairs is like a race comedy, and this is this is like at least trying to be a horror movie. So I'm not going to compare the two. You can't make me say no. It's not going to happen. It's worth mentioning the practical effects on Robin McLeavy when her wrist is broken.
And the gash on Daddy's face.
Oh yeah, with the it's almost like a fucking popcorn chicken thing going on, like a pork scratching face. You see all the subcutaneous fat, and that's hit the facial nerve, and he's fucking done. I think people forget just how devastating a facial wound like that can be, and this movie does it really well. It's not just like a red line; it's really, really bad.
I like he sells it with the performance as well. I think it's great.
Yeah, great reaction, exactly what I needed in that moment. I think. Yeah, the more you talk about him, the more I think he's superb. I just see him as a bit more of a supporting role, just because I think McLeavy's so intense and such a complex experience watching her, because she's really likable and absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah. Well, I think both of their performances are great, and they both give each other enough space to bounce around and do intense stuff. And I think in the context of this movie alone, as a double act, I think that they are perfect.
A fun, unlikely pairing as well.
Yeah.
They're very, 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 very different performances, and yet they don't feel even remotely uncomfortable side by side for the whole movie.
No. I feel uncomfortable that they're side by side, but...
Me too.
Okay, a couple of questions from me, Sam.
Go on.
Is the girl fight in the car meant to be funny?
I don't think so.
Because it is, right?
Good voice. No. What's funny about it?
The way that it's shot, the fact that it's shot completely from outside the car, the fact that they're fighting like a girl fight, like a high school slappy girl fight.
My only comment on that is that I think it might have just been a bit weak, and therefore looks a bit weak. There's a good moment of jeopardy with the knife where it bangs into the road, but that's when you just see that it's a prop knife. And I don't know, it feels like a fight of high adrenaline hysteria, which feels legit, but it's a little bit clunky. It
looks funny to me, and it sort of looks like it's meant to be funny, but I don't know. But the back bumper reversing scene, that's obviously meant to be funny.
Funny? I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, the pacing of it, it's like a joke and a punchline. It's a slowly reversing car, and she's looking at it, and it's slowly reversing, and she's looking at it, and it's slowly reversing, and she's looking at it, and then wham.
I thought maybe it was a bit too horrific to be funny for me, and I don't mean, there's things that are absurdly horrific that I find hilarious, but I think it was, I don't know, it didn't feel like a it felt more like a really clever cut to me. We could have had a really graphic side profile, head shearing off at the jaw, completely crumpling rubber dummy gore fest, but we just got this one and a blood splash.
You laughed, right? I think maybe.
I just think it's well done. Maybe
I think it's pitched as a joke, and the fact that we don't linger. It's just get the laugh and get out.
I thought it was good that they did that, because the logical part of your brain is do not back up and run her over, or you're the one that's going to be in trouble. You have to explain why you backed up and ran her over. But in the moment, he's fucking going for it. Full speed reverse in a cop car, an Australian cop car, whack.
Yeah.
Your head's off. Good fun.
Shall we take a break, Sam? And we'll come back and we'll do our final thoughts and sum up?
Let's cool our jets, come back fresh, wrap this baby up.
Yeah.
Will you give it up, man? Nobody's out there. We're alone. Oh no, there's somebody out there. I'm picking up all this crosstalk.
Oh, whoopsie-daisy, I'm back. How you feeling? You ready? You good?
I'm ready. I'm ready to tell you that you should go to redscare.net.
Let me guess, and buy some records.
I mean, you don't have to buy any records.
Yeah, go to redscare.net, buy some records, check some shit out, go on the Bandcamp, especially if it's Bandcamp Friday, if that's even still a thing by the time you're listening to this in the post-apocalyptic landscape that used to be Earth. Purchase a t-shirt, treat yourself, Everything you buy from Red Scare is shipped by the Nixon twins, which could not be a more wonderful experience for you. It's going to arrive smelling lovely.
Richard and Dickie.
Yes, Richard and Dickie Nixon. We've reanimated their corpses and stuffed them in a downtown Chicago warehouse. Enjoy your Tightwire t-shirt.
Okay, my final thoughts. I like this movie. I think that there are some issues. I think, it starts off in a familiar place, but the tension is pretty good. There's just something real about it, especially like how it sort of channels that sort of chaotic energy of feeling like a teen on the edge of breakdown. I found that really relatable and really, really interesting and like cool to see. It does a great job of like evoking those emotions and then throwing you into that fight for survival. But I do think there's a bit of distance between us and Brent and us and all the other characters, really. So it does drag a bit, and it just sort of leaves moments to hang for a bit too long. The sort of twisted but kind of tender relationship between Lola and her dad is great. Creepy, not campy. I think John Brumpton is really good, sweaty and slimy. Like I say, if you liked this and you wanted to see something that was a bit similar to it, I would recommend Mum and Dad. I know that you would rather fucking cut your own head off with a razor blade and drill your own brain out. But if you're out there in the world, you might be interested in looking at that.
You probably will. Don't be put off by my hang-ups.
It's quite similar in like shtick, and the humor is dark and all of it, but it's set in a flat in London under like the Heathrow flight path. So
goodbye. No thanks.
Yeah.
Never. Not for me in the bin. Thanks.
I think that the films, the loved ones, like gleeful approach to violence is really fun. The foot scenes for me, I found were really gut wrenching and they felt really real. Again, the chicken wings and milk is one of the most fucked up things I think you can do. Like,
it's that hot wing show. What's that hot wing show?
Hot Ones.
Yeah, it's that. There's nothing wrong with hot wings and milk.
But I think like
Barnyard
eating some hot wings and then being really hot and then taking some milk to like soften your mouth up, having a little sip rather than like glugging like big glasses of milk. I think that's the chicken doesn't even look hot. It doesn't even look fried. I'm going to be honest with you. It just looks like roasted chicken.
I'm also not convinced that drinking milk helps the heat.
All right, we'll take it up with fucking a different bald guy. The Hot Ones bald guy, not the Final Transmission bald guys.
Yeah, plural.
Yeah. The Loved Ones, it nails leaving you feeling deeply uncomfortable with what you've just watched, but basically it's a bit stumbly and there's some forgettable stuff in the middle of it. So it's pretty good. 9 out of 14 razor blade necklace cuts.
Ooh. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that. Yeah, good rating. 9 out of 14. I'm going to go with exactly the last sentence that you said. That sums up the whole thing. In terms of brevity tips, bud, yeah, great film with a bit of a stumbly section. I love a lot of the visuals. I really enjoy every character. I think the performances are very strong. It's edited in a way that is maybe a little bit, this is the best of what we've got, put it together and make it coherent. Some strange decisions in terms of plot dynamics here and there, but that's not to say they're bad. They just felt a little bit jank to me, the viewer. Yeah. So I was totally entertained, pretty much engrossed, apart from maybe a 5-minute period in the middle. I'll tell you where it didn't go. We haven't talked about this. It didn't go into dog shit, dumb dick, numb nuts, teen comedy territory at any point, which I felt was pretty respectful of the integrity of the characters. Even the comic foil doesn't fuck up high. And I found that, personally, as a mature adult viewer, to be refreshing.
So you watch the American Pie movies so much that it's refreshing when you watch a movie where someone doesn't fuck a pie. Is that what you're saying?
A, yes. B, all of the above. And C, you can't fuck with the greats. Just, no one's fucking any pies ever again, as far as I'm concerned, because one guy did it and he did it the best.
Yeah.
Jim Levinstein.
Do you think you could fuck a pie better?
No, nobody can. That's what I just said. Nobody can fuck a pie like Jim Levinstein. Nobody.
I bet the pie was like, it was fine.
No way. That pie was destroyed. If you're interested, come listen to my podcast, Fucking Pies with Sam Russo, a spin-off of Final Transmission. So I'm going to give this movie 6.2 injections of bleach directly to the vocal cords out of 10.5. I just... It's very, very entertaining, but it's not a movie that I'll necessarily revisit. I think the performances are strong enough to bump it into slightly higher tier rankings. It's a lovely little... That's not fair. 7.2 out of 10.4 injections of bleach directly to the vocal cords.
Yeah.
The performances alone deserve a lot of credit. I think it's well directed. Can't really fuck with it beyond that. The Loved Ones, an Australian horror movie. Thank you for listening to Final Transmission. Jamie, how do you feel?
I feel fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it is rewatchable, but there needs to be a decent amount of distance there. This isn't a movie that I watch every year, like a lot of the movies that I do like.
Yeah,
I think
not fun
this is
enough for that, maybe.
Yeah, once every 7 years, we'll get you where you need to be.
See you in 7 years, buddy. It might be that the rewatchability factor of a lot of movies maybe partially depends on there being more value to extract. And this feels, and again, in the pro column, very immediate. In the con column, doesn't give more on a second or third viewing, maybe.
Moron.
We're at the point where our brains have melted so much, we're just saying moron at each other.
Yeah. Well,
I don't need a fucking kettle full of hot water poured into my brain. I'm fucked as it is, but thanks.